Welcome to the Mercer County Football Show, presented by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton. I'm Sean Lerman with the Trentonians' Rich Fisher, as we look at a very interesting week in Mercer County football. There were some pretty crazy scores, not the least of which was an 81-point explosion by Allentown. So we'll get to that as we move on, but first, we'll just let you know what games we have coming up on the WBCB Sports Network this weekend. On Friday at 7 p.m., we'll have that Allentown team that scored 81 points as they play against Nottingham. That game will be on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. And then on Saturday, we will have Trenton and Lenape in action at 1 o'clock. That game also on 107.7 The Bronx and online at 107.7thebronx.com. But Rich, Allentown, I mean, that's the story of the week. I think that's where we have to start.
Interesting's one way of putting it, Sean.
Wow. 81-56 win for Allentown over West Windsor Plainsboro North. I was talking to some people about it this morning, and I said, it's not often that you allow 81 points, and you can kind of say, you know, we weren't really out of that game, right? Putting up 56.
Right, exactly. And it's not often you give up 56 and think you're going to win the game.
Right.
So before we start, Sean, I got to thank my buddy Anthony Francioso for the coffee today. His son is a fine pitcher for Steiner.
I was going to say, was it Anthony? I didn't know.
Anthony's dad, saw him at the Dunkin' Donuts, and he bought my coffee, so thanks, Anth. Appreciate it. Now, here's the only thing. Here's what you have to put into perspective for this Allentown game. And not just Allentown itself, but the statistics that Jordan Winston put up. All right, keep in mind, Ben Fair from Nottingham this weekend scored 5 touchdowns, and that wasn't the most touchdowns scored by a player from Mercer County.
Wow.
Joe Menino from Allentown rushed for 276 yards. That wasn't he wasn't the leading rusher for his team. Why is that? Jordan Winston, 24 carries for 354 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he threw for 114 yards. This is mind-boggling for a regulation high school football game. Allentown rushed for 873 yards total. They had 4 guys rush for over 100 yards.
Part of the thing that's crazy about that, too, is generally when you're running the ball so much and keeping it on the ground, the clock runs even faster.
Right. So I don't know if they ran every play out of bounds or what. And here's where it gets even better. West Windsor North, who was shut out the week before against Steiner, shut out 21-0. They rushed for 329 yards. They get 56 points. C.J. Marquise rushes for 156 yards. Quarterback Malik Thompson rushes for 128, throws for 254 yards and 3 touchdowns. We talked about him last week. This was just, I mean, without seeing this game, I can't even surmise how this happened.
It's amazing. I couldn't believe it. I was telling you just before we went on the air here that when I initially looked up the results of the games from the weekend, I saw the score and I thought, oh, that's got to be a typo. There's no way they scored 81. It was probably 41-56. And then I realized it wasn't a typo. And then I thought, oh, I must be looking at the basketball page, and it was the final for a basketball game, 81-56. Okay, that's fine, no problem. Exit out, type in Allentown football against West Windsor Plainsboro North. And then I see that it was a football game, 81-56. Absolutely incredible. I have to say, I'll be out there at the Allentown game with WBCB's Tom Monfiletto for that one on Friday when Allentown hosts Nottingham. And I'm looking forward to that one because, as you said, Ben Fair 5 touchdowns this week. That should be a great game.
You got two players coming back who combined for 11 touchdowns last week. Ben Fair setting a Nottingham school record, by the way. It was originally reported that he tied the record of 5 touchdowns, but he actually set the school record 5 touchdowns. He rushed for 155 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he ran a kickoff, the opening of the second half kickoff. He ran back for 95 yards for another touchdown. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. That's going to be a test for Nottingham's defense, which came on this week. They got 8 sacks in their win over West Windsor South after a tough start against Lenape. So, we'll see what happens. I'd bring a calculator if I were you, bud, because you may have to be racking up the numbers again.
Yeah, I will be keeping stats for that one. I think we should acknowledge Bill Redner, who was trying to make us laugh during that Bill Redner, who without all of this would not be possible. Bill Redner, who does a lot of the selling for BCB, big time, especially in Mercer County with the football. A lot of these games, we have to thank Bill. He does a great job making sure that we get to put all these awesome games on the air.
Well, what makes me laugh is he's got a tie on. I don't know who he's trying to kid with that.
I think he may have had a client in here this morning.
Must have been an important one.
This is the Mercer County Football Show, and as we go on talking about some more games, the other one that we have on the WBCB Sports Network this coming weekend on Saturday afternoon, we'll have Trenton and Lenape, and Trenton picked up a 27-20 win over Steinert this past weekend, and no surprise that Trenton and Steinert play a close game, but maybe a little bit surprising that they won by a score.
Everybody was surprised but Steinert. Yeah, Kyle Muller told me after the game, he goes, everybody thinks we're going to be no good. I don't understand that. And I said, well, because of your record the last couple of years. He said, well, yeah, but they're a pretty confident bunch, and the thing that impressed me about Steinert was not just the way they played. After that game, they weren't happy about it. They weren't like, we hung tough with Trenton, and we only lost by a touchdown. Yeah, every guy I went up to after the game, the interview, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Been better. They're not happy. So that's a sign of what Steiner thinks they can do this year. They were very upset and very let down by a 27-20 loss to Trenton. Trenton, on the other hand, nice job by them to overcome 110 yards in penalties. Trenton kind of went back to the way they were pre-Tariq Holman, where they shot themselves in the foot all the time. But the thing that they did was they overcame that this time. Usually they let all those penalties overrun them, and they would lose because of their mistakes. This week they won in spite of their mistakes. They have a really good rushing attack. Deshaun Peterson led the way with 97 yards. He had the winning touchdown run with midway through the fourth quarter. But they had four guys rush for over 50 yards. They rushed for 356 yards total. And they had a defense that was good sometimes, not good other times. They're going to have to shore some stuff up there. But and then Steiner rediscovered their passing game. Muller, after missing a few passes the opening night against West Windsor North, Muller had a pretty good touch. He threw for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that would bode well for Steiner if they can get a mix in that passing and running game that they had. Trenton did shut down their running game. It was almost like Trenton was going to say, you're going to beat us with the pass, because they held down Rubio and they held down Morrison. And Muller took what he could get. But the Trenton Lenape game is going to be interesting, because that's first of all, it's a division game. We got a ton of division games this week. And Trenton and Lenape are both 2-0 overall, 1-0 in the Colonial Division. Trenton, like I said, is deep in the running backs. Lenape is just destroying people. They've outscored their opponents 55-7. And Ryan Schutz has just been going crazy. He's a great running back for Lenape. He's also a dangerous receiver. So Trenton's going to have to figure out a way to sort of neutralize him a little bit.
Yeah, I think that both of the games that we have on WBCB, on the Bronx this weekend on the WBCB Sports Network, should be some good ones. Again, on Friday night, we'll have Allentown in action against Nottingham. That game at 7 p.m. will go live at 6:45 on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. And on Saturday, the Trenton Tornadoes will take on Lenape at 1 o'clock. We'll go live at 12:45 on 107.7 The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the other results from this past weekend. No other 81-56 crazy games, but still a couple of good ones worth mentioning, so we'll get to that. This is the Mercer County Football Show, presented by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton.
Discover the dealer for the people, Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. One of the region's finest state-of-the-art service facilities for all makes and models. A service facility so good, local school districts get their buses serviced at Haldeman. Police fleets, local municipalities get their cars and trucks serviced at Haldeman. From oil changes to tire sales, Haldeman Ford services all makes and models. And they offer tires for just $10 over cost on name brand tires like Goodyear and Pirelli. And their waiting room offers complimentary food. And there's a special Wi-Fi room available for your use. So no matter where you purchase your car, get it serviced at Haldeman Ford, the dealership for the people on Route 33 in Hamilton Township. I'm Merrill Reese to tell you about our good friends at the Revere Ristorante Italiano in nearby Ewing Township at 802 River Road. I can tell you that from South Philadelphia to New York's Mulberry Street, there's no better Italian cuisine than that served at the Revere. Start your meal with one of their great appetizers or salads. Entrees include outstanding veal dishes, fresh seafood daily, excellent steaks and chops, homemade pasta dishes, daily specials, and much more. You can also enjoy their bar area, where on most weekends entertainment is offered. The Revere also does off-premise catering and can accommodate private parties for any affair, including business functions. Call the Revere Ristorante Italiano for more information and reservations at 609-882-6365. 882-6365. The Revere Ristorante Italiano open Monday through Friday for lunch and 7 days for dinner at 802 River Road, right off the Wilbertha Road exit on Route 29 in nearby Ewing Township.
Welcome back to the Mercer County Football Show, presented by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton. I'm Sean Lerman with the Trentonians' Rich Fisher. This broadcast also brought to you by Fish 4 Scores. That's fish, the number 4, scores.com, and on Twitter, at Fish, the number 4 Scores. And Rich Fisher, who runs Fish 4 Scores, it's certainly about football this time of year, but always a lot of other stuff going on in Mercer County.
Yeah, it's a little tough though. They're having some bus issues over there. They came up with some kind of new thing with the buses, and games are getting canceled over there because they don't have buses and all. And I think it's supposed to be straightened out by October 1st. But it's been a little frantic over there the last couple of days in Hamilton. And the soccer teams are coming off a tough day. All 5 teams that played got beat and didn't score a goal. So the soccer people are hoping things will pick up out there. So, you know, that's like the way things are going in Hamilton today this week. So
some other things that have been going on in Hamilton. This one of the big surprises for me this past weekend was the Hamilton Hornets and the fact that they lost 40-0 to Notre Dame. I thought that was going to be one of the closest games of the week after Hamilton beat Princeton in Week 1. And Notre Dame, although they looked good, they lost in Week 1 to Allentown. So I thought that was going to be an extremely close game, but Notre Dame with a 40-0 win over Hamilton.
Yeah, we all did, Sean. We all thought that was going to be a good game, and it was for one quarter, but Hamilton just couldn't get it going. First of all, give Notre Dame credit. Their defense played outstanding. I think they only allowed like 25 yards in total offense. Hamilton got into Notre Dame's side of the field one time, and that was to the 49-yard line. They never threatened. They committed some bad turnovers, some bad fumbles. Notre Dame capitalized on them. Notre Dame just an outstanding defensive game, led by Alex Roman, the linebacker, in their defensive front. And Alex Roman also ran for like 130 yards and a couple of touchdowns. He was all over the place. It was a classic Alex Roman performance. I guess that just goes to show you really can't tell off of one week what you're going to get. I know Hamilton was disappointed. I know they were looking at that as a big test. And there's Billy again. And it just didn't happen for him. And Notre Dame had to be thrilled. Mark Lourdes, congratulations, getting his first win as a head coach. So all 3 of the new coaches in Mercer now have gotten their first wins out of the way, which is nice. Just a shocker. Now, I know Hamilton's not that bad. I know this almost for a fact.
Right.
Is Notre Dame this good? That's I'll tell you, they've got some good players. They didn't even need Lazinski's arm that much this game, and he threw the ball well against Allentown. So if they can throw the ball and run the ball with him and Alex Roman, and that defense can continue to play, boy, they sure looked good the other night. They were impressive, and Chappie Moore was on hand to watch the game. Big crowd, big Notre Dame crowd. Like the people were standing by the fences, 2-3 deep. The bleachers were packed. So it was a good night for Notre Dame. Just a bad night for Hamilton.
Yeah, I talked to Mike Samsel after the game, who you guys did the game together, and he said, Sean, Notre Dame might be really good.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what they do. They'll have a big test this week, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Some other games from this past weekend. Hopewell Valley with a big 41-19 win over Heightstown this week. So that's another good win for Hopewell Valley. After they started the season with a loss, they get their first win over Heightstown.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Drew Wiley, their defensive end, Jeff Wiley, Drew's his brother. Jeff Wiley, who's going to Villanova for defense as a defensive end, is their tight end, and they put Wiley in at quarterback that game. And he ran for like close to 100 yards. He only threw a couple passes. I don't know if this is going to be set for the rest of the season or or what, but I was shocked when I looked at the stats and I said Jeff Wiley at quarterback. So not really sure what the situation is there. That's going to be an interesting situation to monitor as the season goes on. We should mention too, Joey Immordino had a big breakout game. He had what did he have? 215 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing. So it's easy to play quarterback when your running back's getting 215 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Dave Caldwell said all last year when Immordino wasn't playing that if he was there, he would have gotten some time and he would have done well. And he's proven that this year as he's come back from injury and done real well in the first 2 games.
Another team that picked up their first win of the season this week, Nottingham, with a 34-14 win over West Windsor Plainsboro South. Now, they picked up their first win. They lost to Lenape week 1. It's a pretty impressive team. So this Nottingham team with a nice win.
Yeah, Nottingham, like we said earlier, Ben Fair really busted out, 155 yards, rushed for 4 touchdowns, 95-yard kickoff, and that kind of broke the game open to start the second half. And Ben didn't even start that game, so he came in off the bench and racked up those kind of numbers. And Nottingham's defense played really well. Like I said, they had 8 sacks. Their linemen were getting some penetration. That's a young unit, and Frank Gatto, the defensive coordinator, does an unbelievable job. And I think he's whipping them into shape quicker than he could have hoped. Again, West Windsor South is struggling, so you have to consider that too. It's going to be a lot different against Allentown this weekend, but for Nottingham it was just good. Get that first win, do it convincingly. They fell behind 7-0 on a turnover, and then they outscored them 34-7 the rest of the way. So they did what they had to do. There's still work to be done there, but you got to take what you can get.
Yet another team that picked up their first win this weekend, the Princeton Tigers, 34-27. They won at Ewing. So after in week 1 losing a close one to Hamilton, Princeton gets that first win. Ewing falls to 1-1 after they beat Lawrence in week 1. They fall to Princeton.
Yeah, and you know what, Sean? We talked about Allentown, West Windsor North, and that was the bizarre game of the week. But this might have been for actual great game. This was the game of the week, Princeton and Ewing. Princeton, Rory Hellstrom busted out, 236 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rory scored a touchdown with 4:11 to go to give Princeton the lead. Ewing tied it on Damian Doggett's touchdown, 51-yard run with 3:36 left. Then Hellstrom scores with 2:03 left. He scores on a 5-yard run for the winning touchdown. So in the last 4.5 minutes, you had 3 touchdowns scored with the score going back and forth a little bit. David Beamer threw for 174 yards and a touchdown. This Doggett looks like he's a real dual threat. Threw for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ran for 115 yards and a touchdown. Wow. So he's probably I haven't seen him, but I'm just going by the stats. He looks like he's probably a fun kid to watch, throwing and running the ball.
We should mention one game that was on the WBCB Sports Network this season, a little out of Mercer County. Florence falls to 1-1 on the season with a 25-0 loss at Pemberton, and Pemberton looks like a pretty good team going forward this year. We will potentially see them coming up in a couple of weeks on the WBCB Sports Network. Some other games this weekend. Lawrence falls to 0-2 on the year after a 21-7 loss to Delran.
Yeah, Lawrence is just having, it's a rebuilding year for them, and they, there really wasn't much to say about that game. They just, it was a tough game. They lost and try to, put it back together again. Lawrence is just, they're struggling right now.
And the other 0-2 team now in Mercer County, Robbinsville, falls to 0-2 after a 20-12 loss to Clayton, so they're off to a bit of a slow start this year after a tough year last year.
Yeah, they are. I mean, 20-12 though, they actually thought they could beat Clayton. That was a game that they had circled as one of the ones they think they had a shot at winning. They were in it all the way. Clayton scored a late fourth quarter touchdown to really put the game away, 20-12. But Robbinsville's the kind of program where they have to build on the little things, and they were in the game. They hung in there. So let's see what we can build on this and see what we can do next time. So.
This is the Mercer County Football Show. We're going to take a quick break. We have a lot of pretty exciting games to preview this coming weekend as we step aside for this quick break. He's Rich Fisher. I'm Sean Lerman, and this show is presented by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton. Back after this.
Jerry Blavitt here to tell you about St. Francis Medical Center. the Heart Hospital in the city of Trenton. St. Francis Medical Center is one of the region's top cardiac care centers, serving all of Mercer, Bucks, and Burlington counties. Their staff of highly trained physicians provide state-of-the-art heart care to patients with cardiovascular disease and pride themselves as being the only regional heart center to offer a full spectrum of individualized services. And Consumer Report ranks St. Francis Medical Center in the top 10 hospitals in New Jersey for safety, and the #1 hospital in Mercer County, St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital.
Don't forget, if you miss any of your local high school sports action, you can read all about it in tomorrow's edition of the Trentonian. For your complete local and national news 7 days a week, it's the Trentonian, or online at thetrentonian.com. The only newspaper serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer County 7 days a week, it's the Trentonian.
Welcome back to the Mercer County Football Show with the Trentonians' Rich Fisher. I'm Sean Lerman. This show brought to you by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton. And we've got an exciting week of football coming up here on the WBCB Sports Network. On Friday at 7 p.m., Allentown takes on Nottingham. Big weeks out of both of those schools last week. Allentown with 81 points. Nottingham with a 5-touchdown performance from Ben Fair. So that should be a very good game. We'll go live at 6:45 on 107.7 The Bronx and online at 107.7thebronx.com. Then we'll come back on Saturday with Trenton and Lenape in action. That game at 1 o'clock will go live at 12:45 on 107.7 The Bronx and online at 107.7thebronx.com. But those are not the only interesting games this weekend. There are quite a few coming up. One in particular that I am very interested to see the result of is Rancocas Valley and Notre Dame. Can Notre Dame follow up a big 40-0 win over Hamilton with a big performance against a good Rancocas Valley team?
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be a great game. Both teams are 1-1, and they're both 0-1 in the Colonial Division. So, really, both of them need this game to keep those division hopes for a division title alive. Rancocas Valley lost to Trenton close, and then they're coming off a big 28-6 victory over. I wrote down that they beat Rancocas Valley, so that's wrong. But they have a kid, Iverson Clement, who had 164 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. So evidently he's somebody that Notre Dame's going to have to focus on. And the Irish, you're right, they're back home. They got to be flying high after last week. Alex Roman told me after the game they were just fuming that they didn't beat Allentown the week before. So, they're like Steiner. They're not into moral victories this year. They expect to win games. And this is going to be a great test for them. This is going to be a really good early season battle.
It should. I'm certainly looking forward to that Notre Dame Rancocas Valley game. That one will be played on Friday at 7 o'clock. Some other games coming up this weekend. Hopewell Valley takes on Lawrence. Probably put Hopewell Valley as the favorite there, but you never know. Lawrence could steal one.
Yeah, you're right. They were trying to get this to be the Thanksgiving Day game. So I guess I don't know what happened there. Why they're not doing it on Thanksgiving anymore. But you're right. Hopewell seems to have gotten things together a little bit here after last week. They got their offense going and things like that. So. You're right. Anything can happen. Who would have thought that West Windsor North was going to score 56 on Allentown last week? So, nothing's going to really surprise you. And it's a pretty good rivalry between those two schools because Rob Radis is the offensive coordinator for Hopewell. He used to be Lawrence's head coach. So there's some familiarity there. And, there's always been a respect between those two programs over the years. So it's always a nice game.
Also coming up this weekend, West Windsor, Plainsboro North and South face off. Both teams are 0-2 so far this season, and there's going to be some blood on the field with that one. That's going to be a good game.
Yeah, that's going to be the best 0-2 game that you're going to see this week between two 0-2 teams. It's the battle of West Windsor / Plainsboro. But both teams they're playing for the bragging rights, and West Windsor North has got to feel that they're in pretty good shape after what they did to Allentown offensively. Defensively is a little different, but West Windsor South's offense has struggled a little bit this year so far. They had a tough opener against Hightstown, and then they, like I said, their one touchdown I think came on special teams on defense on a fumble. So they gotta hope to try to get something going and something generated. But West Windsor North. Could be interesting. Could be interesting to watch, win or lose this year. So we'll see what happens there.
Ewing 1-1 on the season. They will go a little bit outside of the area. They'll travel to Willingboro this week. I'm interested to see. It's always interesting to me when teams play slightly outside of the normal area. So to see them go to Willingboro, see what they do there, should be a good one.
Yeah. Willingboro, they're 0-2. They've lost to Northern Burlington and Cinnaminson. They have a very tough runner and a kid named Amir Murray who is pretty good. He can pick up some yards and things like that. Ewing, as we said, dog it. Looks to be a double threat. Ewing is 1-1 overall, 1-0 in the Patriot. Willingboro is 0-2, 0-1 in the Patriot. So Ewing, obviously, 1-0. They want to keep going in the Patriot division and see if they can win a division title.
Princeton has an early homecoming game this weekend. It seems a little early in the season for homecoming, at least for me, but Princeton has their homecoming game. They take on Hightstown Friday at 7 o'clock. And Princeton looks to improve to 2-1 on the season, but so do the Hightstown Rams, who are 1-1 going into the game.
Yeah, and Hightstown's improved. We've mentioned that before. Hightstown's very improved. Ryan Conlon had a pretty good day passing last week. What had happened was Johnny Andre, who ran for over 200 yards in the first game, really got shut down by Ewing last week. They really held him down. So Hightstown needs to get Johnny Andre going again. And Princeton has to feel better about itself. After a really tough offensive performance in the opening game against Hamilton, they got back to doing what Princeton does. Rory Hellstrom had a good game. David Beamer had a good game. There's no secret. Those guys are the key to that offense, along with an offensive line. So, they probably got a little confidence, and Hightstown's going back to the drawing board to see what they can do to make Johnny Andre more effective. And, also they have Ryan Conlon, who's a pretty decent quarterback in his own right.
Robbinsville, 0-2 on the year so far. They will look for their first win of the season at Delran on Friday at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and Delran, what do we got here on Delran? Delran's got a quarterback, Gianni Brian Lopez. He's thrown for 263 yards. Delran's coming off a 21-7 win over Lawrence, as we said. They have a guy that's obviously a pretty good power runner, Sharon Sanders. Last week he rushed 8 times for 8 yards, but 2 of those rushes produced touchdowns. So Robbinsville's 0-2, 0-1 in the Liberty division. Delran's 1-1, 0-1 in the Liberty. So again, you're talking about trying to stay in the division hunt. You really need to win when you're both 0-1. You don't want to go 0-2. Once again, Robbinsville's going for that elusive victory.
Yeah, I think that when I look at all the games that we have this weekend, there are probably 2 games that I am the most excited to see what happens.
What may they be?
They would be, and I'm not just going to sit here and say the 2 that are on BCB, because both of these games I'm talking about are Friday night games, and they're at the same time, so we can only do one of them. The one that we are not doing is that Notre Dame-Rancocas Valley one, and I think that is going to be a very interesting game. I want to see what happens there. But then the other game is the game that we're doing on Friday night on 107.7 The Bronx, 107.7thebronx.com at 7 p.m. We will have kickoff between Allentown and Nottingham.
Yeah.
I mean, Allentown just scored 81 points. I have no idea if you asked me to project how many they'll score this week. I couldn't tell you. But Nottingham just had a big offensive game. I think we're going to see a lot of points scored once again.
Yeah, I think you're right. One thing Nottingham's got to start doing, they got to get their passing game going a little bit. John Adams said before the season Mike Malagrino is their quarterback. He started last year as a sophomore, and they tried to, in John's words, they tried to protect him last year. They didn't ask him to do too much. They just asked him, don't lose games for us. This year he wants Mike to be more in the offense, more of an impact player. Yeah, obviously that means throwing a little more, also running a little more. Mike Malagrino's a pretty mobile kid, so he can get out, he can get outside and things like that. You got to sort of get that, because if they're just going to focus on Ben Fair, then you're going to be in trouble. And as Allentown proved with 4 guys over 100 yards, you can focus on Winston, and they'll have a bunch of other people that'll run wild on you. Allentown's traditionally had good success against Nottingham the last 4 or 5 years, so I know Frank Gatto, the defensive coordinator for Nottingham, is beside himself this week. They joke around. Frank's nickname is the Godfather, and I don't know. He may be putting contracts out on these Allentown guys. Who knows? Just kidding. But yeah, it's a big test for Nottingham. Let's see if that defense is as good as they showed they were against West Windsor last week. I mean, I don't think you're going to get 8 sacks, and but you got to somehow figure out a way the best way they can do it is if they can get a good offense and keep their offense on the field. You know, if Nottingham can rip off some long time-consuming drives and don't give Allentown that much of a chance to get on the field, doing that, or saying that and doing it, though, are two different things.
So a lot of good football games we played this week. Again, that Allentown and Nottingham game will be on 107.7 FM The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. Tom Monfiletto will have all the action. 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll go live at 6:45. And on Saturday, we've got Trenton as they host Lenape at 1 o'clock on 107.7 FM The Bronx and 107.7thebronx.com. We'll have coverage beginning at 12:45 for Trenton and Lenape. That'll just about...
Wait.
Oh,
Let's not forget, because there's some confusion on this. Steiner and Bishop McDevitt are
Oh,
playing.
of course, I missed that.
Bishop
one.
McDevitt is at Steiner this weekend. This was originally scheduled to be a
Right.
bye week, and Chris and I actually said on the air on Saturday that Steiner was off this week and they play the following week. That is incorrect. So Bishop McDevitt will be at Steiner this week, and this game came about when Allentown wanted to play Archbishop Wood. They asked Steiner if Steiner would step down from the schedule so they could play Wood. Steiner said, we will if we can get another game. They got Bishop McDevitt. They went out over, across the bridge to Pennsylvania, talked to Dan Caruso after the game last week, and they're excited. They're excited to play a Pennsylvania team. I just looked at McDevitt's 2-1. They're coming off a big win. They play a lot of road games. They play like 9 road games and 2 home games, Bishop McDevitt. So I don't know what that's all about. But yeah, so this is going to be interesting. I mean, this is a game, I guess it doesn't even count in the PowerPoints because
Right.
McDevitt is from Pennsylvania, so it's a game really where Steiner has nothing to lose. It's not a conference game, it's not a division game. If they can stay healthy and they can beat a Pennsylvania team, that's a nice little feather in their cap. So we'll see what the Spartans can do. It's their first home game, so I'm sure that's exciting for them, and we'll see what happens.
You never know what is going to happen when you go across the river and have PA and
Yeah,
NJ
because
go
nobody's
against each
familiar
other.
with each other. There's no common opponents that you can say, well, they did this and we did that and blah, blah, blah. It's, let's see who's better. Let's see who can outplay each other. Let's see who can outcoach each other.
All right, this has been the Mercer County Football Show, presented by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton. He's Rich Fisher. I'm Sean Lerman. Enjoy the games this weekend.